We started a series in the fall of 2018 about our four pillars, which are represented. And I noticed this one's crooked from certain angles up there. We will get that fixed next week because that is not excellent and it really disappoints me. And so I'm gonna make sure we get these things fixed. But they represent the pillars, and none of them are crooked. It's service, study, worship, and rest. And we started talking about the daylight path of what it means to be a follower of Jesus, that those four things are things that we hold valuable. If you're a follower of Jesus, you're a person that serves others. You're a person that studies and figures out why you believe what you believe and becomes educated. And you're a person that worships God and kind of surrenders to Him. And then you're also a person that takes rest time. You're a person that believes in a Sabbath of that you can't do it all and that God is powerful, and sometimes taking a break is exactly what the doctor prescribed. And we're going to continue on that journey, the daylight path. There was actually a shooting at the Kroger right here in the parking lot last year that kind of derailed our sermon schedule for the rest of the year because I felt like I needed to talk about some issues. And so now we're kind of getting back on track talking about the daylight path. And today we're going to talk about service part 2. And so last time we talked about how serving is ultimately where you find your purpose. Each of these pillars represent a place, a journey that you go on to arrive at a place. And the service, hopefully, eventually you arrive at purpose. And study, eventually you arrive at knowledge. And worship, surrender. And rest, you arrive at peace. And we believe that by finding your place to serve is in some sense the way you find why you were created in the first place. And we talked about that serving your neighbor consists of helping those who have a hard time helping themselves, and that this is something we consider extremely important at Daylight Church. And that's why we do our regular service projects, and we give away 15 to 20% of our money every month and so forth, is because we believe in helping people. We believe that was part of the message of Jesus, is that you ought to give yourself up for others. And we've tailor-made our pillars into events. So the service is our service project, study is our small groups, worship is our worship services, and rest is a non-item on the calendar. Rest is not doing those things. But there's this secret, and you guys are in on this today, there's a secret level in between serving your neighbor and arriving at purpose. And in each one of these, there's a place to take it a little bit further. So serving your neighbor is something anyone can do of any religious persuasion and any ideology. And we would encourage every Muslim and atheist and Buddhist across the globe to serve. But then when it comes to how Christians serve, if you're a follower of Jesus, there's like this second area beyond serving your neighbor that I'm going to describe as serving the church. And in some sense, serving the church serves the neighbor. Global Christianity has had a positive impact on the world since its inception. There have been negatives for sure, but in general, what has happened as a result of Christians has been pretty phenomenal across the globe. And so we encourage you to go to that second level if you're a follower of Jesus. There's never going to be any pressure, never any tension, but we're going to encourage you to serve the church today. I was at a ministry called Iron Bell. Anybody ever been to Iron Bell Ministries here in town? It's just right outside of town. Iron Bell is some people that bought a Kentucky farmstead, a horse barn, for Christian purposes. They just felt like God wanted them to buy this barn and buy this land and open it up for Christians to come and commune with God and seek God. And so they have special events constantly, and one of the events they have is a Wednesday prayer group from 7 to 11. They just open up their facilities, and you can come in, and it's a quiet, nice place. You can find a little corner on your own and study and read and pray, and they have music playing and serve free coffee and so forth. And I went for the first time this week. I had a lot on my mind, a lot I needed to pray about, and went and sat down in the back row, which I'm a back row guy in situations like this, but I went and sat in the back row by myself. And I had met a guy in the parking lot because I was first time there and I didn't know where to go in. So I said, hey, first time here, how do I get in this place? And he pointed it out, and that was the entirety of our conversation. Well, I'm praying for about 20 minutes when this guy comes over to me, and he says, hey, man, I don't want to bother you. He says, but I just want to let you know that if you need to talk, you can grab me. And I said, man, I really appreciate that. And at that point, I wasn't prepared to talk about some of the things on my mind at all, and I still am not. I never did talk to him. But I was touched by his gesture. And I could tell he was, I think I could tell that he was a little bit nervous about invading my space and asking. And yet he extended himself for another human being. He put himself out there. And it was just one of these, and we talked on the way out, and he said, man, I didn't mean to get up in your space. If you come here, people aren't going to bother you every time you come. And he said, but I just really felt like I wanted to extend that opportunity to you. And I said, no, I really appreciate it. I got nothing right now. And he said, that's okay, that's fine. And I intend to go back. But it was a small thing, but I've thought since then about what led up to the point in his life where he was approaching a stranger to offer somebody to talk to. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And I heard about this professional baseball player this week that gave away his $9.7 million home as a camp for children with disabilities. And so he's a professional baseball player. I don't Chase something. Does anybody know this story? Right. Yeah. I have no idea who he plays for. But okay, great, Texas Rangers. But I mean, if you see aerial pictures of this home, it is a big deal. And he and his wife just felt like God desired that they would give this thing up for kids with disabilities to have a camp to go to all summer long. And it's an incredible resort area. And I'm thinking about, like, what is the catalyst that changes people's lives to where they, in a small gesture to a stranger or in a large gesture to a group of kids, what is it that happened? And I'm convinced that, and I don't want to give the impression that I think Christians are the only people that do charity, because they're not. But I will say that I think globally Christians have done pretty outstanding things, pretty spectacular things. I think the good certainly outweighs the bad. And throughout the history of Christianity, you have seen these areas that have been absolutely revolutionized almost entirely by the work of Christians, by people who followed Jesus Christ, that follow the Messiah of God, and say, I want to be like him, thus I will do X, Y, or Z. And if you look at women's issues, and Christians have long played a part in the liberation of women who were basically cattle in the time of Jesus. And Jesus started to break those barriers down. If you want to hear my take on that topic, just go back on our Vimeo account, Daylight Church Vimeo, and I did a 2 or 3 part series on Jesus and women. But there have been massive changes in the value of women in society as a result of the work of Christians. There have been Christians that have kept women down. There's no doubt about it. It's still a big deal. But there have been revolutionary changes that have occurred. In Jesus' time, infanticide was a thing. That in some Roman cults and so forth, in some areas of the world, children were considered not so valuable until they reached a certain a certain age. And Christianity fought against this for a while, and infanticide has been wiped off the globe. And I'm not saying Christians are the only people who have played a part in that history, but they played a huge part. The gladiators, slaves, slavery, and cannibals. Cannibalism has been virtually almost entirely wiped off the globe, and almost entirely due to the work of Christian missionaries. There have not, for the most part, been anybody else going to these cannibalistic tribes, risking their own lives and saying, hey, there's a better way to live. In areas of charity, statistically, when it comes to people of faith, and sometimes that gets lumped together with Muslims and Jews in this country and other people of faith, but statistically, people of faith give shockingly larger percentages of their income to charitable works and to making a difference in the world. And then when it comes to education and medicine, I don't know what the statistics are. I've read them at some point, but I think it's fair to say the vast majority of all hospitals or all centers of higher education have been established by Christians. Not the entirety, but the majority for sure. From the beginning, people said, we got to educate people. Christians wanted people to be literate. A huge percent of the population of the earth that reads today reads because of the efforts of Christians. And when it comes to medicine, even when it comes to things like germ theory, missionaries going into kind of cannibalistic tribes, for example, teaching them that you got to wash your hands after you use the bathroom, have totally changed the shape of the world when it comes to disease and the spread of disease. And so Christians have invested in the world. And I look to see, I want to ask why. Like, what is it that motivates a Christian to do these things? And I think it kind of goes back to this one moment. And this isn't a picture of that moment. This is a picture of the 2 people contained in that moment. But this is a picture of Jesus washing the feet of Peter. And Jesus, of course, has a halo, because Jesus has a halo in every medieval painting ever painted of him for no reason at all that I can think of. But he washed Peter's feet. He washed his disciples' feet. He made himself a servant to them. And there was this one time that Jesus and Peter were having a conversation. And Jesus was saying, who are people out there, what are they saying about me? Because he was a big deal in his time. I mean, lots and lots of people were hearing about Jesus and developing opinions of Jesus. And he was loved and he was hated. Jesus was saying, Peter, what gives? What are people thinking? And he's saying, well, some people think you're John the Baptist. Some people think you're Elijah reincarnated. Some people think you're this. Some people think you're that. And Jesus said to him, well, who do you think I am? He said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus said, well done. He says, this has been revealed to you from God. No person told you this. And then he followed that by saying this. He said, and I tell you, you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will will not prevail against it. And theologians there's lots of debates about when he says, upon this rock, whether he's actually saying, so his name was Simon at the time, and Peter is a new name. He says, your name was Simon. Now I'm making you a rock, Petra, Peter, the rock. And he says, and upon this rock I will build my church. And people debate whether when he says upon this rock, he meant this rock or that rock. But either way, there's this dynamic happening between Jesus and Peter where Jesus is saying, something good's going to come out of this. Something big, something that can't be broken is going to come out of this moment about this relationship between you and me, Pete. And ever since then, Christianity has spread, and it spread like wildfire. In the first century, I've seen statistics about the number of people on the planet that were Christians by 100 AD, and it's just staggering how suddenly, dramatically, this Christianity, the followers of Christ, that's what Christianity is, a little Christ. All these little Christs started popping up all over the world. Little Christs like today that give their $9.7 million house to charity because they feel like God wants them to do that. Little Christ like a person who comes to a stranger and says, hey, if you need to talk, I just want to let you know all you got to do is grab me. And somehow this Christianity, these followers of Christ have exploded across the globe to land at this moment. And they're everywhere. We were in Turkey and met with Christians there and had incredible community and relationship with these people. And God was doing the same things there that he's doing here. It's not isolated. A lot of times we feel isolated as a person in Christianity, but it's everywhere. I mean, you can't. There's virtually no place on the planet you can go right now, and there aren't followers of Christ. And I want to point out that what this global Christianity looks like is basically a multiplication of local Christianity. And so this Christianity that has covered the globe is just a collection of people in spots. It's not one big thing. It's a collection of a lot of smaller things. So then I've been thinking about our community and who we are at Daylight and why we do church and why set up every Sunday and why do community groups and why do these service projects. And a lot of it has to do with this whole idea that Jesus started something that we get to play a part of the snowball of. And it's pretty spectacular that we get to play a part of it. And I just quickly wrote down and this was just a puddle of mud thing that I wrote out about kind of how I see what we're doing here. And I put that we want to create a loose holding but structured way for people to encounter the Jesus that builds hospitals and ends cannibalism and buys beds for refugees and heals relationships and reduces death anxiety and confronts the legalist and the narcissist. And this is just the thoughts of one guy about why we do Daylight Church, but I want to point out a couple things. One is that God never built a bed for a refugee. God used people to do that. He never said, let there be beds. He said, let there be people. Now, people, you got a brain. Go make some beds. And now you've got a heart. Give those beds to people who need them. And I also put loose holding in there because I think constantly about what it means to get a hold of people. And there was a part in the Q video where he talked about the use of power and burning out your people and how he says, when you're killing it, somebody's getting killed, right? And how far do we want to stretch people, and how hard do we want to push people? And I come from a background in ministry where it was a pretty iron-fisted ministry, and you were expected to show up at stuff, and you were expected to do this and expected to give, and if you weren't giving, something was wrong with you, or if you weren't showing up, something was off. And I've maybe gotten on the other end of the horse on that to where I just want to be, if you need to go, then go. If you can't be there, then don't be there. If you're tired today, take a day off. Rest is one of our pillars. But it also needs to be structured. In order to change the world, people have to come together in some sort of structured way. You hear people say, I love Jesus, but I hate organized religion pretty often. It's a fairly common little phrase, and these are maybe a little goofy, but I imagine somebody saying, I love recycling, but I hate organized recycling. It's just goofy, right? It makes no sense. What does that even mean? Like, people have to come together to make this thing happen, right? Or I love basketball, I just hate organized basketball. Or I love restaurants, I just hate organized restaurants. I love food, I just hate organized food, which means everybody is out there slaughtering their own stuff and just scarfing it down, right? So if you ever want to do anything, we do it hand in hand. And so this global thing of changing everything comes down locally, and it comes down close. So when I think about Daylight and I think about why we have a church and why we do what we do, I think these three little statements kind of sum up our message and what I think makes us not unique. There's other churches out there saying these things, but I think this is what feels special to me, and I hope it feels special to you. It's why we show up on Sunday morning. It's why we participate. And the first is that our chief duty is to glorify God and to delight in Him. It's the Westminster Confession, is that's the chief duty of man. We think we're supposed to make God look good, that we're His greatest creation, and we were created to make Him look good. But then second is that He's close and He's not mad at you. So many people have this idea that God is mad at them, and He's not. He's a Father that loves, and always will be a Father that loves. And then finally, this is our battle cry here at Daylight Church, is that mercy triumphs over judgment. There's a lot of churches that want to beat people up into submission to a God that is mad at them. And that's not our shtick here at all. Our thing is, you're loved by a God that adores you, and He wants to be there for you. And when you come in close to Him, that God who already adores you, it is transformational. It does change you. And you do that at your own pace. You do it at your own timing. But if you'll connect with Him, good things will happen. It's just a different slant on things that not everybody has. And I think it's worth doing and worth pursuing. And so I say all that because I want you guys to believe in what's happening here. I hope that, in general, this becomes part of your DNA as a human being. And again, we hold you loose. If you say, I ain't for that, God is mad at people, then there's a door out there and you're welcome to use it. But if you buy into this stuff, it should affect you. I've been thinking about hell lately and how many people believe in eternal conscious torment in hell and that people will burn forever, and they don't possibly live their lifestyle like they actually believe it. A belief like that will revolutionize every single conversation you're in. And I hope that this idea of a God who's not mad and that mercy triumphs over judgment gets down deep inside you. I read this quote recently that I thought was pretty spectacular. She said, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. So cracking the whip and telling people to build a ship is one way to get a ship built. The other way is to say, I wonder what's out there. Are you interested in exploring it with me? And they're two different methods. It's two different thoughts on leadership. It's two different thoughts on how we motivate people and how we get people going. And I just hope that you guys can look at a list like this and say, I want to invest in that. I want to be a part of that mission, that mercy triumphs over judgment, that we're going to loosely hold a structure that changes the world, that gives beds to refugees and heals relationships and challenges the narcissist and the legalist. And I hope that it can fill you and own this thing. That's what I would love to see happen, is that those of you that can hear me, that you say, I own this thing. I am in it. I am in it to win it. Whoa, I can't believe I just said that. So you've got this global thing, which is actually a local thing, and the local thing actually comes down to individuals. The local thing is you multiplied. It's us multiplied. It's we. So the whole global thing, all it is a collection of individuals that are buying in. That are buying into this church that Jesus said He was going to establish, that the gates of hell could never prevail against. It's people saying, yes, I'm in. I was sitting, one of these wonderful existential moments you have as a father, you know how if you have kids, then you know that they sometimes end up in bed with you, and sometimes their foot ends up in your mouth. I don't know how this thing happens, but it just always happens. I mean, they're kicking you and rolling around, and I'm laying in bed one morning this week, and my little girl, Elena, who, as you can see, is a princess, got up in bed with me and was literally snoring. I mean, it's just like something not so beautiful coming out of this thing that just doesn't make sense at all. But I'm just watching her sleep. Most parents can relate to this. There's something about watching your children sleep that is just, this is what life is all about. And I started thinking about how thankful I was that her little heart was beating in her chest and nobody had to bother with it, that it just happens. That she does, nobody has to kickstart it. Nobody has to think about it. You right now, you haven't thought about your heartbeat for the last 10 minutes until I just said something. It just keeps going. And those lungs keep filling with air. And those kidneys keep circulating the fluids in your body. And the liver keeps messing with your metabolism and so forth. And all these systems are going on all the time, making her the princess that she is. And all those things come together to form one. And I was thinking about this independently of my sermon, but it ties in with this passage from Jesus about what it looks like for the global work of Christianity coming down to individuals. And it's a bit of a long passage, but I'm going to read it to you. It says, so it's in 1 Corinthians. He says, just as the body being the global community of Christians, so who Jesus is on earth is represented by the body in this passage. It says, the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, and so it is with Christ. For the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot should say, because I'm not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I don't belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would be the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. And the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable, and on those parts of the body that we think less honorable, we bestow the greatest honor. And our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty, which our more presentable parts do not require. But God has so composed the body, giving greater honor to the part that lacked it, that there may be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care one for another. If one member suffers, all suffer together. If you've ever had a hangnail, you know what this is talking about, right? And they're fun to play with, but they hurt. I don't get that. That's just a side note for you to think about. If one member suffers, all suffer together, and if one member is honored, all rejoice together. Now you are the body of Christ, and individually members of it. And I want to point out a couple parts of this passage that I wanted to highlight. And it says, God arranged the members of the body, each one. So sort of what this passage is saying is that there's this body out there, and you make up a part of the global body. That you, as an individual, were chosen and arranged by God to be who you are, where you are, when you are. And that means you have a function, whether it's the function of a hand or a foot or an eye or some of the unmentionables that are extremely important and so forth. Whatever those things are, whether you're, so when it comes down to practicality, whether that means you're supposed to be in front of a congregation teaching like I am right now, or running the soundboard like Chris Duke is right now, or listening and taking notes and sharing it with a friend like Tremaine is right now, we all have a part to play in this whole thing. And it can't be emphasized enough that your part is stupendously important. Your individual part is the whole. And every part that's missing is a part that, just which body part don't you want? Let's just get rid of something. What are we going to get rid of? And I don't want to get rid of my toenails. I don't want to get rid of my eyelashes, my sweat glands, whatever it is. There's nothing in my body that I think, even the appendix that science has shown has a purpose. You're healthier with an appendix. There's nothing I want to get rid of. Well, I mean, there's maybe a little bit I want to get rid of, but even the fat you need. I can last longer than some people without food because of, why is that funny? So, what part do you want to get rid of? And that's the question when it comes to somebody who just lays off of service, who lays off of service within the church and inside the community. There's something tragic missing. It's not just a matter of, well, okay, they'll get it done. That's the biggest enemy of Christian work, in my opinion, is they've got this. A person who says they've got this is a person that's not contributing. And you are needed. Every single person. I'm going to brag on John Shields for a second. John took me out to lunch a few weeks ago, and he said, "Man, I wanted to do lunch mostly just to keep the relationship up and the friendship up." He said, "I'm the kind of guy that sometimes I'm not going to show up at a service project so much, but he says I do like to fix stuff. And when people have problems," he said, I like to help. And he said, "So if you're ever in a situation where something goes wrong and something's broken, call me and let me know it's broken, and I'll see if I can fix it." And thankfully, 2 days later, I was stranded on the Waterson in our food truck, and I had his phone number in my cell phone and was able to call him. But so now he's got the food truck, which is a part of our ministry. It's a part of the global thing we're doing, and his people are taking a look at it and figuring out what's wrong. Mice chewed through the wires in the electrical system. The thing's an 88 Chevy. I mean, it's an old truck. But he was playing his part in the grand, so this small thing, a lunch where he says, let me help, let me serve, is a part of a much bigger thing. It's part of encouraging a pastor who has to get up and encourage 100 people every single week. We all work together. We all need each other desperately, and nobody gets to take a time off. I don't mean rest, but I mean nobody gets out of this. If you're a part of Christianity, you're a part of Christianity, and you're a body part that is needed. So what is your part is part of the question. Now, I will say this. This is another one of those sermons where I just thought I was way too cool for this sermon. Church planners are notorious for preaching on two topics: getting involved and giving your money. And it's because church planning is hard. The financial need is desperate. The teams that you need to pull this thing off, it's really hard to get people. The 80-20 rule is very much real. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. And it's hard. And so church planners, I mean, I've heard of church planners that every single service was, hey, we need your money. Hey, we need your service. And I decided early on, from the very first time I preached, I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to ask for people's money all the time. I'm not going to beg for them to be involved all the time. And if people don't show up, and if people don't give, and if people don't serve, then I'm done. That's been my deal with God. As long as people are serving, as long as people are giving, great. If not, I'm not going to beg. Let's just make this thing happen. But I've been reading these leadership ideas and concepts. I'm reading a book on leadership now, and the very first chapter is about the big ask. And the big ask says that leaders ask. That if you're a good leader, you stretch people, you challenge people. And so if you're new to Daylight Church, then I'm going to talk about money in just a second, and I'm going to talk about service. And it'll probably sound like this is every sermon that you've ever heard. And I feel like our track record at Daylight show, I've talked about money maybe twice before. I don't know that I've ever sat down and said, hey, every single one of you needs a job within the church. I don't think I've done that in all of our 5 years here. So this is in some sense a first-time event, but an important one. So I'm going to ask you in 3 areas to contribute to this thing that we're doing where we loosely hold a structure that challenges the narcissist and challenges the legalist and gives beds to the refugees and heals relationships and so forth. I'm going to ask you to invest in these things. Number 1, I'm going to ask you to form a crowd. I'm going to ask you to show up. One of the challenges that I've found in planting a church for not-so-churchy people is that not-so-churchy people make a decision every Sunday morning whether they're going to church that day. Churchy people, that's not a part of their agenda. Going to church is what they do. There's a lot of people that say, I go to church every Sunday. It's what I do. I show up at events. It's what I do. And if that's not who you are and where you've been, then you wake up and say, well, you know, I'm a little tired this morning, or oh, it's kind of snowy out. I'm not going to be there. I want to challenge you to think about this. Would you rather be in this crowd at a concert or a crowd of 12 people? Like, which concert do you think is probably going to be the better concert? Right? The one with the big crowd, right? Crowds generate enthusiasm. Lots of people showing up means something is happening, and it's contagious. And when that diminishes, if the crowd gets smaller and smaller, then it could be the Rolling Stones on stage, and if there's 8 people that show up, it's not going to feel like a big deal. And so I'm preaching to the choir. I'm looking around. Most of you are the I'm in church every Sunday morning crowd, but some of you maybe not. And I want to encourage you to make that your mentality, is because I'm a part of this global thing that God is doing, and I'm an individual that makes a difference. It does make a difference just to show up, just to be there. I also want to encourage you to give and give substantially. I'm a guy that believes in tithing as a sacred thing. The tithe, if you want to go and read on your own, and I encourage you to do this, I challenge you, the tithe is something that's occurred all throughout both Jewish and Christianity, of Jews and Christians giving the first dime of every dollar that comes in back to God. And so that means 10% off the top of your pre-tax income and so forth. I've done it for as long as I can remember. And I am a big believer that this is a blessed, sacred thing from God, and that people who don't, some churches teach that you're under a curse. And there's a passage of Scripture that would seem to indicate that. What I do believe is that, and I don't think you're under a curse necessarily, but what I do think is that when you do this sacred act that God ordained, God blesses you. And there's a passage in the prophet Malachi. Malachi the prophet is preaching to the people of God, and he's talking about the people. So these people have been tithing their livestock, but they've been bringing in the gimped and lame livestock and giving that as their top 10%. And Malachi is challenging them, saying, is this really what you want to present to a holy God? And then he says, test me on this. It's the only passage in all of Scripture that I can think where God said, test me. He said, tithe and see if I don't open the windows of heaven towards you. And so I would encourage you I get hesitant about this because there are pastors out there that will ask people to give more than they can give. They will say if you're hungry, you should still give X amount of money instead of eating. And I've never been that pastor. I just firmly believe that God blesses this practice. And wherever you're at, and the nice thing about it is if you're a millionaire, you're tithing off of millions. If you make $10 an hour, you're tithing off of $10 an hour. It's fair, it's equitable for everybody. I've done some teaching in the past. The one time I taught on money, there's some teaching in the past on where the tithe should go. You can go back and look that up. But it's needed. And I'll give you a perfect example. And maybe this is a little challenging and maybe this is over the top, but we recently had a couple that came to the church who was giving financially really well. I mean, it was a huge boost to the church. And we were already getting to start thinking about, well, we desperately need a youth ministry. And so if we could just get over that hump financially, if we could just get a little, so this couple was helping a lot. And if we could have done just a little bit better, then all of a sudden we could have hired a youth ministry and started a youth ministry. Well, unfortunately, the couple soon left the church because we didn't have a youth ministry. And so if you have the idea of, well, they've got this, then the church never grows. Because you think, okay, we're setting up every week, we're having a service every week, but we're not able to expand. We're not able to continue growing. We have needs, and the church has needs. And so, again, not arm twisting. I love you. Jesus loves you. He's on your side, whether you tithe or not. But here's my challenge to you. Try it for 6 months and see what happens. I'll bet God will take care of you. The last thing I want to challenge you, and I'm probably going to go a couple minutes long today, because as you can see, I'm on my soapbox. I want to encourage you to help us form a deep bench. Like I said, the 80-20 rule is very much real, and it's very much alive and well at Daylight Church. And some of us and some of our team are just tired. Because ultimately, it's the same 6 or 8 people showing up every single Sunday morning doing the nursery and the children's ministry and set up and tear down, and we've been doing it for 5 years. And the mentality is, oh, they've got this because it's functioning, because it's happening. But people are tired, and we could use some help. I was with a buddy. I see Claire, his wife, here today. Rusty's not here today, but we had lunch this week, and he was talking about playing soccer, and he played soccer at a very high competitive level. And he said after college, he didn't touch a soccer ball for 2 years. And here was his quote that I wrote down in the moment. He said, I did it every freaking day for 4 years. There's a point where even the things you love drive you crazy. And so let's take Andrew leading worship. Andrew has led worship in here for years. Now he's working a job at Starbucks where sometimes he's putting in 80, 90 weeks and still trying to train a team and still trying to form a song list and do rehearsals and show up and train people how to play instruments and so forth. And he loves music. I mean, Andrew, you love music, right? Yeah. It's like his favorite thing in the entire world, and it's clearly what he was born for. And yet he's done it every freaking day for 4 years. And even the things you love sometimes tire you out. And so we need people that will step up and be the bench. So when it comes to setup, when it comes to teardown, when it comes to all these things, we need people to give us depth. I believe every Christian should have 2 lists. And those 2 lists contain what I shouldn't be doing and what I should be doing. And list number 2 should overwhelm list number 1. If you're serving, if you've seen the magnanimity of the ocean and you're building a ship to get out there, you don't have time for trivial stuff. When you're serving, when you're part of a mission, it fills everything you are. It fills your DNA and it challenges you every day. And so what you shouldn't be doing kind of vanishes, kind of disappears because you're filling it with what you should be doing. Now, in practical terms, what does this mean? And again, if you're not into Daylight, if Daylight's not your home, seriously, just forget this or keep coming until we wear on you enough to where you love us. But on your chairs in front of you are these cards. Can I get one of these, please? And on it says, "Join the Daylight crew." And so this is practical stuff. This is where the rubber meets the road. And I'm going to ask you, if you would, I want to encourage everybody to get involved somewhere. And you have a ton of options on this form that you can help build this thing that's happening that is really special. This is a special church. You guys are special people, but we need help. There's some tired people, and we need a break. And so if you guys would fill this out, if there's any, so if you would go through and check any one of them that you could be interested in, this is not a commitment yet. All this means is that one of us will be contacting you soon and saying, hey, you checked greeter and you checked security and you checked kids, and we really need help in kids. That'd be a place that you could really serve, and here's how. And what we're talking about is maybe a once-a-month commitment to show up. So that's what we will pitch eventually. That's not what we're doing today. Right now, we're asking for areas of interest where you could serve and you could help that you would be willing to talk about. And if you would do that before you leave, that would be very helpful. And if you could set them on the communion element tables on the sides as you leave the sanctuary, that would be fantastic.